Welcome to this week's Garden Rambles. Well, today we're going to visit an interesting wee garden, a town garden, but it's a garden that goes down on a big, beautiful slope. It's the garden of Chris Paul and Kevin Wenzel, and they used to have a garden that was well over 100 years old, an old villa house, beautiful big stone wall in Eltham, and they made the move to New Plymouth, and 4 years ago bought this little house and started the garden from scratch. Well, Chris is a landscape designer, and first of all we're going to go and catch up with him and find out some of the principles of what to do when you engage a landscape designer. Sometimes you only need a little bit of guidance, sometimes a full plan. So let's go and find out what Chris is up to. G'day there, Chris. Hard at work there?
Yes. Just doing some drawing.
Yeah. What are you actually working on at the moment?
This is the Maida Vale retirement village home. At Bell Block. Planting plans mainly around some new villas that they're building.
Now that's going to be an interesting thing because a lot of retirees that are going into these have come from big gardens and things. How much do you have to sort of look at some of their needs when...
Well, again, usually there's no one living in the house then, so we just have to do almost a generic that suits the whole place rather than the individual. And when the individual comes in, then they can put their pots and bits and pieces around. So it's really, I'm doing the overall of the whole thing, and they've got award-winning gardens out there. So, and old people love, shouldn't say old people, but old people love gardens. And yeah, we do have to keep that in mind, definitely, because they like colour and they don't like trees that get too big and stuff like that. Because at the moment we're having a huge redo of the trees out there as well.
Oh, right.
It's a tough site because it's so windy, and the only trees that are doing really well are the Pūtakawas, so we're opening them out to let a bit more light through and things like that as well. So, and the area around the swimming pool's getting revamped, and yeah, it's ongoing. It's definitely ongoing.
It's an interesting thing, landscaping around the swimming pool, isn't it? No. Few hints on plants and your approach.
Well, plants that don't drop leaves usually, and no plant ever drops no leaves. They all do. At the moment, succulents and things are very popular, and they're good with stone as well. They don't drop a lot of leaves, so agaves and aloes and things like that. And lush tropical things, your palm trees again are really popular at the moment as well. So, but a lot of people think that's a bit boring. So you've still got to have your roses and your chukurim hedges and stuff like that as well.
Now how do you call yourself? Landscape designer, landscape architect?
Landscape designer.
And what was your background to getting into becoming a designer?
Initially, before I left school, I just gardened. I was brought up in a place with a big old rambly garden, and my mother had let it go, and I just loved pottering and that in the weekends. And as soon as I left school, I did an apprenticeship with Duncan and Davies, and that's where I learnt all the plants. Again, it's a long time ago.
But it's still amazing, isn't it, in New Zealand when you look round and the threads of Duncan and Davies that are active within the New Zealand horticultural industry.
Yeah, definitely. In fact, one of the residents of Maida Vale is Colin Hutchinson.
Oh, God.
And he's got his own, which I haven't seen, but he's got his own unit up there, and obviously lots of plants around it.
Yes. And one of the personalities of New Zealand nursery industry for so long, wasn't he, Colin?
Definitely.
Yes.
Yeah. So, again, as you get older, he's had big gardens, he's had all sorts, and then he's just reduced down, and I'll probably be the same in a few years' time, reduced down to a tiny little plot next to a villa.
Yes, well, we better share a little secret that somewhere 15 odd years ago, probably even a bit longer, we came and visited your garden, Stonewall Cottage in Eltham.
Yep.
Now that was a gracious villa and big rambling garden.
Yep.
Must have been tough leaving that.
Again, practical reasons. It was more practical to come back and live in New Plymouth, to be closer to the airport for my partner's comings and goings more than anything. And yeah, it was hard to leave. It was hard because it was a lovely established garden with huge trees and things, which was why we brought the property to start with. It was hard to leave, but we had exciting things happening in New Plymouth as well. So, and we'd been here prior, and it was about 15 years ago. Yeah, because we were in the festival about 15 years ago.
That's right.
Yeah.
It was one of the Blue Ribbon Gardens.
Oh, it was. That's
Yes.
right. Things have changed a bit.
I
haven't
know.
they?
The politics of garden festivals. You've got to
Yeah.
love them, don't you?
Yeah. Oh, God.
From afar.
I know. I'm not on any of the committees or anything. Mm.
Yeah. Now, as a landscape designer, someone says, right, we're going to bring in a landscape designer for our garden. What sort of preparation should they do before they come and have a chat with you?
Okay, good question. They should have a copy of the house plan, a copy of the section plan. Again, sometimes I go before the house is even built and site the house and things like that. So, but I do like them to have the image of the house that they want. Because sometimes we site them a little bit more sheltered than they might want them on the hill, and I say, well, let's go down in the valley a bit more out of the wind, because Taranaki is such a windy place. But to at least have an idea of what their house is going to be like to start with. That's in a new house situation. Yeah, all the details of the house should be fairly confirmed. Positioning can sometimes be up to me. Sometimes the architect's done it, or the builder's done it. They need to have their list of requirements, whether they want swimming pools, outdoor fires, decks or terraces, or the 101 other things that people want these days. Quite often they're non-gardeners. We get a lot of non-gardeners, but they just want it to look good and not have to do much. Go and play golf.
Yeah, well, what a wonderful way to go. But at the same time, the talk of people growing their own food is re-emerging. Are you finding that you're getting a lot more sort of stylised veggie gardens and things requested?
Bit, yeah. Again, that's an area that I'll put aside, an area for a veggie garden, and then let them put their chooks in and do the compost and stuff as well. Don't get too much detail, so then they can have their own personality in that area rather than over designing it.
And that's an important part, isn't it, to me, that sometimes you get an interior designer that says you will have a photo of ships on this wall and you hate ships.
Right.
How much of personalities do you read?
Well, again, yeah, it's their garden. I'm doing it for them, and some of the gardens I design I don't like at all. But I'm doing it for them. I'm not doing little my gardens everywhere. Because they'd be very different, and I spend a lot more time in my garden than a lot of my clients would. And as I said, they'd rather just have it low maintenance. Usually low maintenance is the first thing most people say.
Yes.
But it's more, initially it's all about structures, the fences and the walls and the levels and the steps, and it's all about that first. And that's where most of the money goes as well, into the hard landscaping. And then the plants come in and soften it down.
Yeah, whip down the garden centre and spend $200 or $300 and they've got their garden.
Well, a bit more than that.
Yeah. Well, we've got to just build them up carefully.
Yeah.
And what about when you go into existing gardens? Because a garden like your previous one we filmed with you was a garden that had trees that outaged you and I, and will outlive us as well unless someone gets chainsaw crazy.
Right. Well, again, an established garden, usually people call me in because they may have just purchased it and it might be overgrown, or they just don't quite know which direction to go. And usually, they might want a planting plan to fill all the gaps and things, but quite often I say, well, let's get rid of the bad stuff first. So you get in a pruning company or a tree pruning company, someone to get rid of the stuff that's rubbish. And then you can see the spaces, which is what we did in Eltham with the place there. It was a bit overgrown in places, so we had a good cutout, left the good stuff, took the bad stuff away. And then you can see spaces for making new things. So that's a good way to do that.
And I imagine you must have a bit of cringe factors come in when you come into some of those scorier 70s gardens that are buried somewhere under the undergrowth.
They're almost back in fashion again.
Oh, gosh.
Not scorier, but that mid-century modern, again, on the inside of the houses, very fashionable, and in the gardens now as well. Again, it's the simple, no-maintenance gardens that that suits really.
The Revital product range from Revital Fertilisers can be completely customised to suit the unique growing conditions on individual farms. Our representatives can arrange a soil test on your farm to identify what is required in your fertiliser mix to obtain the maximum benefit for your pasture or crop. Sustainable pasture is the key to profitable farming. Revital fertilisers contain a diverse microbial population which continue to grow and improve soil fertility and productivity.